You're live.
Good morning. We welcome everyone who's in attendance here today, and all those out in television land, so to speak, in camp, in Florida, in America, and around the world. Welcome to another Sunday morning adult Lyceum program. As you probably know, every Sunday morning from 9:30 to about 10:10 or so, we'll have another teacher talking to us something about spiritualism. Now, before I begin the talk, I want to say that next week, June 7th, our teacher will be Pauline Gold. June 14th, Mary Gates. June 21st, I'll be back here again because that's Father's Day. I have a special presentation I want to give. Then on June 28th, for the first time, Dr. Jerry Christoph. That's your lineup of teachers for the month of June. I'm holding here, as you probably can see, sunflowers. Okay, they're artificial sunflowers, but they represent the living sunflower. Now, why do I have sunflowers here today? Every major religion, in fact, every major company, corporation, movement, group, has adopted somewhere along the way some type of symbol, something that you recognize and you know that it belongs to this or that group. And that symbol generally represents something about that group, that corporation, that company, that religion, whatever. And the ability to read symbols is partly what I'm going to talk about for a little while. Back in the early days, the spiritualists adopted the sunflower. This is the motto that goes with the sunflower for Casadega. As the sunflower turns its face to the light of the sun, so spiritualism turns the face of humanity to the light of truth. So we see that the sunflower, right from the beginning, is important for what we do in spiritualism. When I first read that many years ago, a little light bulb went off in my head. And I remember knowing about a very well-known mystery school. Now, I can't read or recite every aspect of it because it is a mystery school, but I'll give you some idea of where this might have come from. As the sun in the south at high meridian is the beauty and glory of the day, how about this? As the sun rises in the east to open and govern the day, so rises the master in the east. So we see that the whole idea of sun and the east is a part of a spiritual tradition. I should make that plural, spiritual traditions going back hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Now, why the sunflower? Well, I've given you part of it at this point. And I think that our foremothers and forefathers in spiritualism probably considered the lotus flower. The lotus is very, very popular or well known. Again, goes back thousands of years as part of the spiritual traditions in that part of the world, everywhere from Egypt east all the way to Japan. Very, very well known in India, for instance, Japan, Egypt, many of those countries there. Now, why the lotus is not part of what I want to do today. If I were to talk about the lotus as a spiritual symbol, it would take more time away from spiritualism. So I think they decided they didn't want the Eastern aspect of it. They wanted something a little bit more contemporary to America. They probably considered the rose. Rose is very popular, especially in the spiritual and religious traditions of Europe. I think everybody knows about a rose. But again, they wanted something American, and the sunflower matches that perfectly. So what is it about the sunflower besides what I just talked about up to this point? Well, first of all, the sunflower represents the sun, as I indicated. And the sun traditionally has been the giver of life. Without our sun, we would not exist. And not getting too deep into astrology, but the sun is the ruler of the astrological sign of Leo, Leo the lion. Now, just to swerve for a little bit, this is why Jesus is a solar deity, and it's called the Lion of Judah. So we see that a lot of these things begin to come together in the sunflower. Certainly the color yellow represents the sun. And again, astrologically speaking, the sun, the element, the stone, is gold. The color is gold or gold yellow. And this all represents the higher aspect of life. Now, in 2 weeks, I mentioned we're going to have Marie Gates here. And Marie and Lewis every year plant sunflowers in front of their house. They grow very tall. They're beautiful. And if you look carefully at a real sunflower, you see in the middle, a dark part, right in here, is where the seeds, the sunflower seeds we're all familiar with, that's where they come from. And when it's time, they burst forth. This is a perfect symbolic representation of life. You could almost call it the Big Bang. They burst forth. Besides, sunflower seeds are good for you. And so the sunflower, typically an American situation, represents life. Where many religions dwell too much on death, we understand that death is just another aspect of life. So the sunflower is a good thing. If you look around Casadega, or almost any spiritualist church or community, it's all you're going to see is sunflowers, all along the wall here, paintings of sunflowers. All of our annual programs have the sunflower on it and in it somewhere. If you're a beginner in meditation, we do what's called have an object of meditation. And although it might be rather elementary, again, for beginners, a good object of meditation would be a sunflower. You can get a real sunflower. You can use a good looking artificial one. Just focus your attention on that sunflower. Before the pandemic hit, I was scheduled to do a seminar off grounds on symbols. And we understand that symbols are shapes, and shapes hold energy. And so the sunflower, as a symbol of spiritualism, holds the energy that has been imbued to it for over 100 years. There is power in symbols, and there's power in the sunflower. So we want to understand that this is not picked arbitrarily, willy-nilly. There's a long history and tradition of using something like a sunflower in religious institutions, and we've chosen the sunflower, I think, wisely. So let's spend a little time talking about symbols in general. Oh, by the way, it might be a good idea to have some sunflowers, even if they're like this, in your house, as a continual reminder that life is continuous, that we don't die. So symbols in general now, I'll spend a little time on, especially in the beginning stages of mediumship, as the consciousness begins to open, we get flooded with symbols. I've seen it happen to me, happen to many people that I know. You're nodding your head. And again, the beginner wants to know what each symbol means. They weren't up to the books. I did give a talk a while back on symbols, and I went to my book collection, and I was amazed to see how many books on symbols I had. I probably never even opened them, because I learned early on that the symbols should be specific to you. To you. Perhaps a little bit of background from one of the better books might be a good way to start. Get to see what the authors have to say about certain symbols, but you can get lost in that. Symbols throughout history would fill this room. There's so many of them. So we want to understand that the symbol agenda should be one you develop for you yourself. Let me give you an example. As a beginning student, I would sit for development in class, and we would meditate. And then each person would go around the room and say what they received, and if they received a message for somebody else in the class. So I received in meditation a rose. I could still see it right here, a rose. And I realized how many different things they could mean. To this day, I'm not thrilled about receiving something like a rose, because it means, what does it mean? The person likes roses, the person raises roses, the person's allergic to roses, someone's going to give them a rose, so they gave somebody a rose, they're in love. What does it mean? So in trying to interpret this symbol, a little spirit came to me and said, "That's my name, silly." Or else I'd have been stuck. That's my name, silly. And the person that was receiving the message, also being a medium, immediately knew who that was. Immediately. They started telling me all about Rosie. But without that, I would have been in big trouble. Many times, mediums work almost specifically with symbols, and their ability to interpret them in the moment is what's important. I remember during one of the afternoon message services on a Sunday years ago, one of our mediums was up giving messages, and when he finished, he walked past me. He goes, "When did I stop working symbolically?" I said, "Maybe just now." There came a point with him where he surpassed working with symbols and went into a very intuitive way of giving readings. Well, some people work with symbols. I remember also as a student, one time down in Colby Temple, it was an afternoon, and one of the teachers was working a few of us. We grabbed some people off the street. "Come on in, we're going to practice on you." And I saw chickens pecking away at the dirt, getting the seed, peck, 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 peck. See, chicken. What do I know what that means? Well, I know exactly what that means. Just today I was talking about how people are pecking at me. They're going to peck me to death. So I know what that means. And we developed it from there. In the same situation down there, I saw what looked like a birthday party going on. People with their little hats, cake, candle in the cake. She says, "Oh yes, thank you, it's my birthday." But if we don't know, and you can overanalyze symbols, that can be a real problem. Symbols are very important. Again, shapes hold energy. You can work with symbols on your own. This is how the best astrologers work with astrology. They will take the different symbols and meditate on the symbols here. And rather than go into the books all the time, they begin to build a connection, an etheric connection to the astral symbol itself. And that symbol will talk to the person, so to speak. Once you get the symbol, then you can look at what's called the aspects. In astrology, for instance, it says when this is in that, in conjunction with that, it's written like as an astrological sentence, you're going to know what it means. It could have slightly different meaning for each person that you're given the chart reading for. Symbols are important, but they're not the end-all and be-all. Almost everything is a symbol. I'll give you one example of how the different interpretations can happen. If I went to you like this today, you would know what that means. But in some cultures, you do that, it means something totally different. Totally different. So we have to understand the background to the symbol. Years ago, when I was more involved in studying and working with the UFO, alien, flying saucer, ET type of thing, I remember walking into a restaurant and sitting at the counter was one of our people from the meetings. Hey, Don. I said, how you doing? It was this book here proves the existence of flying saucers. I said, no, it doesn't. Yeah, I said, the book proves it. I said, no, it doesn't. They're just words. They're just words. The words are symbolic of what they're trying to tell you, but those words are not the real thing. And yet we get caught up on words as symbols. Again, in working with mediumship, I could possibly see clairvoyantly in my mind a chair. What does that mean? This chair, that chair, high chair. One has to understand that the chair represents something deeper than what you're looking at, whether it's with your eyes or with your third eye. Given enough experience, enough intuitive feeling, you will know what that chair means. And then you can proceed with the reading or the message. Sometimes the symbols do come in words during a message, a mediumistic message, but it's kind of like looking underwater. It's not that clear. At one time, giving messages here in the Sunday service, afternoon grove, we call it grove service, I kept hearing Georgina. And it sounds like Georgia. I was reading for a woman. I said, I'm hearing the words. She said, it's like Georgia, but it's not Georgia. Because I kept thinking, like the rose, Georgia. Are you from Georgia? Are you going to Georgia? Somebody you know lives in Georgia? Is that your name, Georgia? You know, what? I said, it's like Georgia, but it's Georgia. Oh, she goes, that's Georgina. Oh, I haven't heard from her in a long time. She passed away a long time ago. But if I just stuck with Georgia, I'd be in big trouble. I had to let it develop and develop and develop. And say, okay, what does this mean to you? This my exact words. It's like Georgia, but it's not Georgia. It's Georgia. Not sure it's Georgina. Again, words are symbols. Whether you're reading them off of a page or hearing them in your consciousness. I think one of the most profound ones that I was involved in, I had a man that used to come to me on a regular basis. And I helped him with a lot of things. Business, family, personal things, a lot of things. This man was a doctor. But he was not a doctor who held an office and had patients. He was into research. And he had an assistant who he called a medical intuitive. Okay, we know that that's real. And he told me, he says, this medical intuitive passed away a number of years ago. And I brought her through. And then he tells me that this medical intuitive had 3 spirit guides. He says, I can only remember the names of 2 of them. Can you bring through the name of that 3rd spirit guide? Now, anybody who knows what I'm talking about, he wants me to bring through the spirit guide of his deceased medical intuitive assistant. I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? So I tapped into it. I said, went in a little trance. If you go in a little bit of a trance, the consciousness opens up. Symbols are the language of the consciousness. That's how it works. Close my eyes, went in a little bit of trance, I kept hearing, wow, rah, wow, wow. He goes, that's it, Raul, you got it. But I didn't do that. I go, well, this makes no sense at all. What is this, Raul? What is it, some kind of animal or something? But I stuck with it. And the more you stick with it, your ability to stick with the symbol, more and more and more comes through, as I said earlier. The same would be true for spiritual healers. Now, over the years, we've separated mediumship and healing, but they're both forms of mediumship. You are the medium for something, the go-between. And so if you're working in spiritual healing, you might very well receive symbols that are useful to you to pass on to the person sitting in your healing stool or chair. It's not a time to give a message, but it is a time to understand that the symbol might very well come through for a reason. If, for instance, when I gave that message about the chickens pecking and the woman knew exactly what that was, and we developed it from there, if that had come through when I had hands-on healing with her, I would have to probably approach it a different way. As I finish the healing, I might very well say something positive, knowing that she's probably being picked on by people, either at home or at work or somewhere. We do understand that healing, that symbols are so much a part of our culture, our society, but more so in the work that we do in spiritualism. We all wear symbols. Just the fact that you're wearing a certain shirt can tell you something about yourself. And it might very well tell other people a little bit about you also, without getting too carried away. What is it about that pattern, that shirt, that whatever, that made you choose that one today and not the next one on the rack? Something about the color, the pattern, the symbols attracted you. And the more we attune to symbols, the better it's going to be for us. I have to say, some people in their households are minimalists. They have very few things. Not us. Anybody who's been in our house knows that we have a lot of stuff. But it's not picked out willy-nilly. It's not, hey, that's okay, we'll bring it in the house. It has to be some kind of symbolic meaning to it. And having yourself surrounded by these icons, which are symbols, statues, paintings, pictures, flowers, you're inundated with the energy of these symbols. I'm quite certain that people that do this, no two of them are alike. Everyone's have their own taste in decor, which is all symbolic also. I'll bet if anybody here is say for instance, a cat lover, you're probably going to have pictures of cats, statues of cats, because they represent something to you. Or a dog, or anything. This is the way it works. Now, for those out there, you can just plain listen. But we've got some folks here. If you want to ask a question or add to the story, just speak up so we can hear you or come forward. But I'm sure if there's any questions that we can deal with it. Any comments? Go ahead.
Comment. When I do readings, it used to make me, I didn't understand it at first. I always see trees. So now, every time I'm doing a reading for someone a loved one who's committed suicide, they stand behind a tree and hide until they find out if their loved one is willing to see them. But I find so much comfort in that now, because as soon as I see that, it gives me a little bit of time to understand, what's going on. But at first I was like, why do they always hide behind a tree? And I thought, but it's helpful. It's a really helpful symbol and tool for me.
Yeah, I'll make sure I know you're saying the suicide behind the tree or the person behind the tree.
The person who committed suicide is always hiding behind a tree when they come to talk.
I would hope everybody heard that. Every time she does a reading for a suicide, the person who committed suicide hides behind a tree until we know that the person she's reading for wants us to come through. Then it comes out from behind the tree and we know everything's okay. And she said when she first started seeing that, it was confusing. But she said through practice, through understanding what this is about, you cut through the time to figure it out. For you, it's a perfect symbol. And I would suspect that no one else in the world has that same symbol of a suicide hiding behind a tree until the coast is clear. This is a perfect example, and I thank you, of a personal symbol that helps you do your work. To this day, I'm still not good about receiving a rose. This is no one thing. But that's very specific to you, and I appreciate you saying that. Anybody else have a question or comment? Yeah, go ahead, John. Nice and loud now.
I always thought that symbols was a way to
What's
try
right?
to hide things. To try to hide things from common sense people, I guess. And instead of just coming out saying it or writing it, whatever language you're in, why do they make it like a trip?
Yes, that's another aspect of symbols, John. I don't know if you heard that, but John's saying that he always thought the symbols were like hiding stuff rather than coming out and saying what it is. You're absolutely right. This is why a lot of the mystery schools, secret societies, put the information in symbols that only their people can read. It is a way of, I guess the word would be hiding or keeping the mystery of what the symbol represents. The problem there, John?
If you're gonna write something or depict something to have the next guy, the next generation understand it, why would you try to hide it? You know, it doesn't.
No, there's information,
It's like a
John.
conflict.
John, there's information that is only for a certain group. Okay? Now, the problem there is when people who are not part of that group try to read the symbol and they generally read it quite erroneously.
Right. You get it wrong.
Well, this is the way it works. For instance, I wear this. Okay? I go along in shops and stores and restaurants. People ask me what this means. That means they're not part of a group that I'm a group, because they would look at it and go, oh, I know what that is. Okay? So depending on who's asking, I might tell them, oh, it's just a cross. That's not just a cross. One of the symbols that is very, 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 very old, a lot older than 2,000 years, I'll tell you that, is known as a cross. Cross is very old, but depending on what group adopts the cross, it's going to take on a different meaning. There's crosses, you can look in books filled with the different versions of cross. So if I'm doing a reading and I get a mental image of a cross, I have to interpret that, what it means for that person. Because otherwise, you just can't say a cross and leave it like that. And this is why the different symbols hold different energies for a different individual, different group, different culture, whatever. Because if you're receiving information mediumistically, it's there for a reason. And hopefully you'll give it the proper interpretation. Certainly, if I'm doing a reading and I get a mental image of sunflowers, it would probably tell me that this person has some interest in what we do in spiritualism. Although they might not understand the word spiritualism, they might understand what we're all about. And as you continue to talk to that person, more opens up to the point where they might say, gee, I might want to know more about spiritualism. Or I might want to know about life after death. Somebody else could be something totally different. If I see a sunflower for you, as I continue to work with it, more information comes specific to you rather than to you. We talked earlier that in the beginning stages of the psychic opening up, symbols come flooding in. You're nodding your head when I said that. They come flooding in. And many people are concerned about that. What's happening to me? Many people are concerned, why can't I read the symbols? The answer is simple. It's just the opening. Don't be too concerned. When the time comes to work with symbols, that'll slow down. Go ahead, John.
Do you think the word spiritualism is a symbol?
All words are symbols.
Or if you break it down, spiritualism.
Well, it's not unusual for religions to have an ism attached to it. Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. So ism is just a symbolic way of putting on that it's a religious aspect of the word. Judaism, Hindu and Buddha, things like that. Catholicism, okay? Not all of them have, but you understand words are symbols. And if we start talking about words just in general, I got another minute or two. One more minute.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Sometimes words are very similar, almost the same, mean something entirely different. Totally different. Did the football player resign or resign? They're spelled the same. You see? Look at the word. These poor people trying to learn English. You know, how about rain? R-A-I-N. Rain, R-E-I-N. Rains on a horse. It's crazy. This is why we have to have what's known as discrimination to know this and that. And discrimination is a big, big part of spiritualism. Unfortunately, I'll answer your question, John, afterward, but I'm getting the signal from our pastor here that it's time for me to wrap this up. Again, next week we have Pauline Gold, who will be our teacher. I thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. We'll be getting ready to get into our church service here in a few minutes. We will reset, and we will be live again for the church service with Clara Whalen getting her paperwork and doing the lecture.
Do you need us to leave?
No.